Yeah, most people try to like not bring it up because it's a sad subject to bring up upon, but everybody knows what happened and everybody mourns and everybody's upset about what happened.
You can't really forget something that big and traumatic.
Or it could mean it's not Bryan because his car's got nothing in it and there were only 13 minutes to do this. The magistrate didn't get to know that.
In fact, his DNA is still on the knife sheath, though. There's more than enough evidence for people to make a decision, and how can the truth contaminate anything?
Huge developments in the case against Bryan Kohberger as the suspected killer has accepted a plea offer. And one of the victims' families is beyond furious about it. Also, we're on a verdict watch this morning for Sean Diddy Combs. Jury deliberations resume in our next hour. In the meantime, we're asking, what outcome is the public predicting? Plus, barely an hour into day one of deliberations, a note was sent to the judge complaining of a rogue juror. We'll break down the note and the question asked by the jury foreperson. And defendant Raul Valle returns to the stand this morning. Did you think he was believable on day one? It's all coming up next for you right here on Opening Statements. Good Tuesday morning to you. Welcome to Opening Statements. I'm Julie Grant. This is the show I like to call Coffee and Court. It's morning time. We're relaxed. We get you all warmed up together and ready for the big Court TV live day ahead. And what a big day it already is. Grab that cup of coffee, my friends. It's time for my opening statement. Bryan Kohberger accepted a plea offer in exchange for a guilty plea to the murders of Kaylee Gonsalves, Madison Mogan, Xana Kernodle, and Ethan Chapin. The death penalty will be taken off the table, and Kohberger will serve 4 life sentences. He also will waive any rights to appeal. The Gonsalves family said that this was unexpected and that they feel the state of Idaho has failed them. My heart breaks for that family. My heart breaks for all of the families who've been affected by this nightmare. My friends, victims have rights. You hear me talk about this all the time on this program. Victims have rights, and they have a right to be consulted in such a process to offer a plea. They have a right to be heard throughout the process. I want to be very clear, though, the ultimate decision on how to proceed is always going to be up to the federal government or the state, in this case, the state of Idaho. So as for this plea agreement itself, the plea agreement itself, this is a good thing because it provides certainty and finality to what has been a heart-wrenching, traumatic, stressful process for the families of Kaylee, Maddie, Xana, and Ethan. Trial would add even more trauma into their lives. They would have to see that evidence. They would have to relive the nightmare of their children being brutally murdered. Now, if the case would go to a jury, we have to remember there's always the chance of the uncertainty of whether that jury will follow the evidence, whether they'll follow the law, whether the jury would even be comfortable imposing the death penalty. A bird in the hand is worth 2 in the bush, as the famous saying goes. Now, as for Kohberger, the stargazer, remember, that was supposed to be his alibi. He was said to be riding around alone, looking at the stars the night of the homicides. Well, I say that that creep ought to thank his lucky stars this morning that he's going to get prison and not the firing squad. Because if he murdered those beautiful children, the death penalty is more than warranted for him. That's my opening statement. Let me know if you like it. Right now, it's time for your daily docket.
Did there come a point when Mr. Snyder took a case of beer from one of the 2?
Yes.
And what happened after that?
It moved out into the driveway, and then a fight started.
In Connecticut, we've got testimony continuing in the Preppy Party Murder Trial for Defendant Raul Valle. He's set to go back on the stand to continue his direct examination at 10 a.m. Eastern Time. And my friends, when that starts, we'll go in there together live. In New York City, we've got jury deliberations continuing in Sean Combs' federal sex trafficking and racketeering trial. The jury expected to be back at 9 a.m. Eastern Time. And in Colorado, Defendant Barry Morphew set to appear in court. Morphew was accused of killing his wife, Suzanne. The incident happening back in 2020. He was charged once. Charges were withdrawn. Now he's charged again. We'll see if they stick. Today's hearing starts at 3:30 p.m. Eastern. Now, let's turn to our top story for you this morning. Defendant Bryan Kohberger accepting a plea offer from the state of Idaho to avoid the death penalty. Now, as of right now, his change of plea hearing is set to happen tomorrow. And if the judge approves the plea agreement, he would be sentenced to serve 4 consecutive life sentences. According to a letter sent to the victim's family members, Kaylee Gonzalez's family issued this reaction on Facebook after the news broke, saying, quote, "It's true. We're beyond furious at the state of Idaho. They have failed us. Please give us some time. This was very unexpected. We appreciate all your love and support," end quote. Kohberger was set to go to trial in August for the murders of Ethan Chapin, Kaylee Gonzalez, Madison Mogen, and Xana Kernodle, all stabbed to death at their off-campus home back in November of 2022. So this morning, we're asking, is this plea offer justice for the victims? I've got 2 outstanding guests. I want to bring them in now. I have high-profile criminal defense attorney and trial ad professor Don Milarczyk with us. He's also death penalty certified. He's done many death penalty cases in the state of Ohio. And I have with me in South Carolina the state solicitor in South Carolina's 16th Judicial Circuit, attorney Kevin Brackett. He also helped to famously put away defendant Susan Smith with our friend and colleague Tommy Pope. Kevin, Don, good morning to you both. So let's start with that important question that everybody's asking. Is this justice? Curious what you both think. Don, would you start us off, please?
Sure, Julie. I think that it is. You mentioned in your opening statement that this will provide the family, it'll provide the communities, it'll provide Mr. Kohberger some finality. There won't be endless appeals that could drag on for decades. And, I have spoken to hundreds of jurors on death penalty cases, and these are very, very tough cases. As you know, it requires a unanimous verdict to impose a death sentence. So one person on that jury of 12 could prevent a death sentence, and we would end up exactly right here. And as you said, Julie, the prosecutor knows this case better than anyone. They know the evidence not only of guilt innocence, but they know the evidence that would be presented at a mitigation trial. That's a whole second trial where the sole issue is the jury has to decide what is the appropriate sentence, where things like mental health are taken into consideration, things like the mental issues that the defendant may have that might not rise to the level of not guilty by insanity, but may rise to the level of some juror to say, I think this weighs in favor of a life sentence. So this plea, this agreement avoids all that uncertainty, avoids all those appeals. And we have to remember, this is death by prison. He will die in prison. It is a humiliating, degrading, dehumanizing, isolating, punishing sentence to serve the balance of your life in prison. So he will certainly be punished for his crimes. And I believe that this resolution is a just resolution.
Oh, Don, you're so right. Boy, that gave me chills hearing you say that, death by prison. That's one way to look at this. Thank you for that. And thank you for the reminder as well that this would be 2 parts, that fancy word, the bifurcated trial, 2 trials. Thank you for reminding us of that. It wouldn't be over after trial 1. And Kevin Brackett, let me turn to you on that point, because you also have tried death penalty cases. I named one of them, Susan Smith's case. You know what this is like, that weighty process of going through whether to pursue capital punishment or not. Your thoughts on whether this offer is just?
Well, you know, Julie, I tell victims over and over again, there's no golden yardstick that absolutely measures what is or isn't justice in any given case. And there is no number or word, life or death, or any number of years that's going to bring their loved one back. It all depends on so many different factors, the quality of the evidence that you have, so many different things that come into play when you're making this decision. But it does give the victims in this case finality. They don't have to live with this case on appeal for the next 25 to 30 years. And in South Carolina, it is most likely that you will try a capital case at least twice. Once, and then it'll get reversed, and you'll have to go back and do it again. So it really is an arduous process, and the victims' families have to go through in excruciating detail what happened to their loved one. So, you know, what is justice? So that's a question that's been pondered for centuries, and will go forward. But I think that this does give a tremendous amount of benefit to the victims in this case, and I understand that not all of them are happy, but overall, I think this is a reasonable conclusion to the case.
Really great points, Kevin. I love what you said about, there's no universal formula or, a yardstick to measure this. I mean, every case is different. And as you pointed out, what if it comes back? What if it comes back and then these families have to do it all over again? We know you both would have great points this morning. I have more questions for you. Let's look at a clip first from Steve Gonsalves, Kaylee Gonsalves' dad. He was on News Nation last night.
This is the opposite of our will. There was no majority believing that this was acceptable. I want to honor all the police officers, the FBI, and all the people that work their tail off. The failure is at the court level, 100%.
Okay, Kevin, I want to go to you here. Being a prosecutor, what might you say to the Gonsalves family this morning if you were the team of these Idaho prosecutors handling this? They're upset. Certainly there are going to be conversations before tomorrow when the hearing is set to take place. What might you say to them today?
Well, Julie, I think the larger point that needs to be examined first is I've spent hundreds, thousands of hours with victims in my conference room in cases just like this one. And it's hard, even when you're dealing with one family, to get them all to agree on a course of action. And even if you can get them all to come together, usually there's always been the third cousin from Paducah that nobody's seen in 20 years who flies in to vent his spleen about what should happen, and he's not happy and he wants his 3 minutes of fame on the local news. But getting four families to agree is extraordinarily difficult. You're not going to make that happen. So somebody has to make the final call. And I'm going to reserve judgment on the prosecutor in this case until they've had a chance to explain what their position is. But I suspect at the end of the day, we'll find out that some of these families did not want to go through the rigors of trial. And this prosecutor had to make the decision of trying to get the most justice that he could for everybody. And somebody was inevitably going to be disappointed. So for the Gonsalves family, there is nothing you can say that can salve the wound that they've suffered. It's only going to be time that heals that. And I understand how upset they are, because they've focused their hopes and dreams on resolution, on a death verdict, and they think that's going to make them happy. It wouldn't in the end. But I understand their disappointment, and I'm sorry for them. They certainly have suffered a terrible loss.
Certainly. Well said, Kevin. I think all of our hearts are breaking for them. And there's no sure thing in this case, as we talked about earlier. Don, you touched on this. Being on the defense side, your perspective, I would love to know what you might say as someone who's incredibly compassionate, a parent you are as well, what you might say to those family members having done these cases on the defense side.
Well, it's an incredibly difficult, tragic case. But what I can share, and what I do share with juries, is, look, I've done this for over 30 years. I've represented over 20 individuals charged with the death penalty. And the person that the state kills 20, 25 years from now is not the same person that committed these horrific offenses. Julie, you and I have talked about how we were raised and going to church and hearing about things like redemption and forgiveness and mercy. And we have all benefited from those things at times where we didn't deserve it. I know I have been given a second chance and been given mercy when I didn't deserve it. And that's an easy thing to hear about on Sunday. It's a tough thing to live on Monday through Friday, but I have seen it. I have seen the men that the state of Ohio has killed, and they are different individuals 25, 30 years later when they have lived in isolation with their thoughts, with the ability to kind of understand and see the impact of their crimes, and they are different individuals. So it's tough to say, Mr. Kohberger, who he will be in 15, 20, 30 years from now, but that power of redemption, that mercy that is even unearned, I think is a more powerful force than this idea of vengeance or punishment. And it is a powerful, powerful force that we can all benefit from.
Brilliant analysis. Don Milarczyk, Kevin Brackett, thank you both for all of that. I'm so grateful that we have you both throughout the show today. More questions coming up after a quick break. My friends at home, go refill your coffee. We're going to hit our first break of the hour. When we come back, we're turning to the case the world is watching. It's out of New York City, Diddy's federal trial. Day 2 of deliberation set to begin in just about 45 minutes from now. And we're talking about the jury questions. What do they mean? And
guilty or not guilty?
I think guilty of some, but not all.
I would think he would be found guilty, but, stranger things have happened.
Based on what the prosecution gave me, I don't think that it's enough to give somebody 30 years, 20 years.
As the jury decides Diddy's fate, we are getting verdict predictions from trial watchers and people in the true crime community. Be right back.
Friday night, the WNBA is on Ion. The Dream aimed to be a nightmare for the Fever.
Shannon finishes.
Then the Sun tried to outshine the Storm.
Oh, like that!
Coverage begins Friday, July 11th at 7. Find Ion wherever you watch. Ion, it's on.
These are the cases that captivated the world.
Couldn't keep my life straight.
They were killed by their own children.
That challenged the legal system and ourselves. Court TV, Legendary Trials.
So starting with blood, how would blood get on the linens at freak-offs?
I was expected to have freak-offs on my period.
Who expected you to do freak-offs on your period?
Sean.
Who decided how many entertainers you would be with in a single hotel night?
Sean.
How did you feel during the freak-offs when Sean beat you?
Worthless, just like dirt, like I didn't matter to him. But that I was nothing, like absolutely nothing.
How did you react to seeing news coverage and social media posts about Cassie's lawsuit?
Because there was 3 specific pages that was just a harrowing resemblance to what I was experiencing.
The federal trial of Sean Diddy Combs has been trending in true crime for some time now. Salacious details coming into the courtroom from partners and employees, all alleging criminal acts said to be orchestrated by the famous music mogul. So as the jury gets ready to start deliberating day number 2, the court of public opinion is already weighing in, talking about what fate the former bad boy's outcome of the trial may be. So Court TV hit the pavement with the help of legal correspondent Kelly Craft to get some predictions on the Diddy verdict. Let's watch.
Guilty or not guilty?
I think guilty of some, but not all.
The fact that his defense is so short, I think they may know something. I bet he gets off.
I would think he would be found guilty, but, stranger things have happened.
I think he should spend some time in prison. I think that there's enough reasonable out there that it's possible he walks out free.
Diddy is guilty. Diddy is guilty.
So I think it'll be a split verdict. I don't think that he will be guilty on the top charges.
I think that if the prosecution really wanted justice for these potential victims, who we feel is alleged victims, I think you could have tried them in the state right around the corner maybe.
I think that the government has done a great job in proving this case, especially I do believe it's RICO racketeering.
It's had allegations for so long. Once you have so many allegations over so many years, there's no way that you haven't done something. You're guilty of something,
What I've been listening to is he's going to get off on technicalities. They haven't completely connected the dots, but I'm sure he's guilty, but I don't know that they have all the proof that they need.
I don't know if the prosecutors have fully proven the racketeering, the RICO aspect overall, and that's probably why they scaled back on some of the predicates. So I think he will be found guilty of some stuff, maybe not guilty of the top charges.
Whether it's trafficking or, money laundering or whatever he's, accused of. He's guilty of something.
All right, so what do you think? What is your prediction? Hit us up on social media. Let us know. I have two outstanding guests that are standing by ready to talk about this case. We'll get their predictions as well. I want to welcome in New York-based journalist Dara Kennedy. I had the pleasure of meeting her when I was there covering the trial. She's been there covering it every day throughout the progression. Dara, good to see you. And welcome back to our friend Sherry Botwin. She is a trauma therapist. She's also an author, and she is an expert witness qualified to testify in both state and federal court. Good morning to you both. All right, so let's talk first about predictions. Would love your predictions and if they've changed throughout the progression of the trial. Maybe what you might thought would happen going in isn't the same at this point. Dara, let me begin with you on that, please.
Good morning, Julie. Thank you for having me on. And I am going to answer your question, but your timing couldn't be more perfect because at this moment, it looks like the family is pulling up, so they're going to be out here in just a couple of seconds, actually. But to your question, initially I came into this like everyone else. I saw the CNN video and I said, oh, goodness, he's guilty, but he's guilty of domestic violence. And that's not the charge. I wanted to hear the rest of the charges. That's just as a layman person, not as, a news anchor here that needs to cover just the facts. 2 months in, right? This is week 8 I've been out here. And now, to be honest, I just don't know. I do feel like he's guilty from the letter of the law, Julie, as you like to say on your show, on a few of the charges, including transportation. But when that questioning came about yesterday at 4:30, we got it in the courtroom about 4:50. You went home asking, what is the jury doing? Why did they start at number H, which is number 8 of the predicates? There's only 8 under that racketeering. Why did they start there, or did they blow through the other charges? So my answer is I just don't know.
That's a good answer, Dara. I know. And I appreciate the explanation behind it, too, because I think you said what a lot of us were thinking when we saw that Cassie video. My gosh, it was horrible. Just horrible. Every time you look at it, you see something worse. It just feels worse. It's one of those things you just can't get around it. And point taken.
And if I can just say really quick, Julie, and I'm sorry for the noise. Of course, this is New York City. That same juror, when you start talking about that juror 25, who his team is having issues with him, he is the same one who, okay, I'm sorry, guys, so here comes the family. Mama Combs, how are you this morning? You're looking great. How are you feeling? Okay. You feeling good? Good. And then also walking behind, and I'm so sorry we can't see because I'm just on my phone there.
And thank you for that, Dara. Yeah.
And then there's Jason Driscoll as well, who is, of course, part of the defense team, part of the Shapiro team there. So sorry to interrupt you, but as that's happening, it's important to see that the family is still coming out. But that juror 25 is the one who, during when he was being chosen for the jury, said that he actually was familiar with the case.
Mm-hmm. Right. He had said he saw the Cassie video. Yes, Dara. He had seen it ahead of time, which I think, most people, my gosh, you would think would, and they need to be honest about that. Sherry Botman, let me turn to you, please. Your thoughts on your prediction in this case. What may this jury do and why?
I'm going to agree with a lot of what Dara is saying. Once the case started and all the facts are put out there and all the mixed messages and the testimony, when I make predictions, I'm often not correct. So what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to think of it as in the role as if I'm a juror and think about just the facts. And again, I don't know the details of the law, but I think this is going to be one of those cases where they could come back hung. When I heard about the question around 4:30 yesterday, my thought was, oh no, I don't know if they're going to get to a verdict. And it's not because I don't think that there are awful things that happened and crimes that he allegedly committed, but I think the charges, the amount of testimony, and also the other thing I think about is the lack of education that jurors have when it comes to issues like grooming and domestic violence. And Dr. Dawn Hughes did an amazing job explaining to the jury some of the facts and some of the details that go along with these types of crimes. But I don't know if 12 jurors are going to come to a united decision about all this. And I think we're going to be sitting here for a while before we hear anything.
That's a great point, Sherry. You know, the point about, I thought the same thing about, oh my, are we going to have a hung jury? And Dara, I want to go to you on that point to dovetail off of what Sherry said. The first question from the foreperson about that juror seeming to not want to follow the law, right away, I cringe. That's the worst thing we can ever hear, is somebody who takes an oath, hears all the testimony, swears they will follow the law, and then gets in the jury room and decides to go rogue. Dara, what do you think, please?
That's a great question. And it's one that, Julie, we actually talked about, just, and you were with us Friday. You see how we get together and we kind of go over notes to make sure, do we understand this properly, right? Do we understand what the judge had said? I think that his question, the defense focused on the word cannot, right? Because the full sentence was, we are concerned that jury 25 cannot follow your Honor's instructions. They're not saying that he doesn't want to, that he's unwilling. They say cannot. So I think it's, as Mark Agnifilo said, the lead defense attorney for Diddy, said that what does cannot mean? Is he refusing to? This man is a molecular biologist. He's a scientist by trade. So we're quite sure he knows how to follow instructions. But is he having a hard time with the minutia, right? There's so much gray area. There's so many charges. And then the breakdowns of them all. Is he just not unable to follow, or will he not follow? And when you question it like that, he might just say, okay, I don't follow. I'm not voting the way you guys are voting because I don't understand. Mm-hmm. And in that case, as your guest just said, that would be a hung jury. And I do think that there will be charges where everyone would not be unanimous.
Mm-hmm. Great points, Dara. Yeah, this guy's a smart guy, as you noted. And so it can't be that. So you wonder, is there something moral going on with him? Is he feeling like he can't sit in judgment? Sherry Bott, when I see you nodding, your thoughts on that. And also, if some of this may be hard for a jury of lay people who may not work in the trauma space, in the true crime space, in the trial space, understanding things like coercive control. That's a concept, you get tapped to explain all the time because you understand it in the work you do with survivors. Talk to us about those things, please, Sherry.
So thank you so much. I just was scribbling stuff down. Here's what I want to say. We don't know what kind of thoughts and feelings these jurors have had over the last 7 weeks. We don't know if some of them maybe realize as they're sitting in court, oh my gosh, some of these same things happened to me, but I didn't know that's what it was called. So there's a lot that we don't know about the jurors and how they've been feeling and experiencing, listening to all these different facts. So I think that might be one of the things that could be happening.
Sure, very possible.
Sherry, does it matter that there are 8 men and 4 women, and the man that the jury foreman, jury number 5, is a 31-year-old finance guy from Manhattan, and he sits next to, actually in that courtroom, Julie, you might remember in that first row, they sit next to each other. So they've sat next to each other.
So those two, yes. So they were on the end closest to the judge. Right, Dara?
That's exactly right.
Okay,
that's exactly right.
I know who you're talking about. Oh boy,
yes, those two. I know, right? So there's one that's he's in his 50s, and then there's the 30-year-old, finance guy. And right away, right, within an hour, they already have, from the streets, they've had beef within the hour, right? So you have to wonder what that connection has been over the course of 2 months, because they've dined together, they've lunched together, they come in the morning. How is it within an hour? And Sherry, maybe this is a question for you. Within that hour, how are they already determining that this guy is not going to be able to handle this?
I think that their problem.
Yeah, go ahead, Sherry. Yeah, and then we have to hit a break. Okay. Go ahead, please.
Yeah, I think, again, it's one of those things where we don't know what's going on in the minds of any of the people sitting on the jury, male, female, 51, 31. The thing that people don't understand about trauma is there's a lot of people sitting in that courtroom who probably don't even realize that they've been through some of the same experiences. When you sit in a courtroom for 8 weeks and you hear about all of these alleged crimes, some people may be realizing, I don't think I can be on this jury because I do have bias. There are things here that I'm hearing that did happen to me.
Sherry, thank you for that. Sherry Botwin, Dara Kennedy, we've got to leave the conversation there for now, but I really have enjoyed talking with you both. Thank you for your insights. We'll continue on that verdict watch together this morning. You can see, as you saw Dara's live shot there, the jury should be here soon because we see the family arriving and the judge gave them a 9 a.m. start time. So we'll keep you posted and we'll put the clock up when it begins. When we come back, we're going to spotlight the first day of those deliberations and dig deeper into those questions. The questions on that possible rogue juror and the question about the drug distribution. That came up. Our legal eagles weigh in on that next. And we'll take you to Connecticut for the continuation of the homicide trial for Raul Valle. Could his own words on the stand tip the scales of justice?
But he was wrong. For 20 years, the defendant got away with his crimes. That ends in this courtroom. The defendant is not a god. He is a person, and in this courtroom, he stands equal before the law. Overwhelming evidence proves his guilt. It is time to hold him accountable. Find him guilty.
Will today be the day that we get a verdict for Sean Diddy Combs' case? Welcome back. The jury should be getting into the courthouse any minute now to resume their deliberation. So what must they be thinking about, and what can we glean from their questions? So let's take a look at the questions. Let's start there. And I have two great guests to help me unpack them. Let me bring them in now. Criminal defense attorney Dawn Malarczyk still with us, and forensic psychiatrist Dr. Carol Lieberman. I want to welcome her in to the discussion now. Okay, so the first question was pertaining to this juror number 25. He is a 50-something-year-old, approximately white man, a scientist. And he apparently said something in that room that made the jury foreperson think this person cannot follow the law. Ugh. Okay, Dr. Carroll, what do you think when you hear that question, what may be going on with this guy?
Yes, well, there could be a number of things. One, it could be, where he said that his morals are such that he can't vote this way or can't decide this or something like that. Or, I doubt it's that he doesn't understand since he's this scientist, although the law is different really from science, so it doesn't necessarily mean he's going to be able to understand everything. But also maybe it means that he, they take a vote at the beginning just to get a sense for where everybody is, and maybe he was an outlier. And they don't want to have to be in there forever, and they're saying that he can't, that maybe it's because they don't want him to make a hung jury or something like that. But it's really very interesting. What I think is what we've been seeing with recent cases. I think there needs to be more time given to voir dire. It keeps coming up again and again that some jurors don't understand. We saw this in the Karen Reed case where the first set of jurors, the first trial, that they didn't understand that they could vote in a certain way and all that. And I think we need more time to pick out, and then the man who they excused, who said he lived in the Bronx and then he lived in New Jersey. We need more time to ferret these things out.
Sure, great points there, Dr. Carroll. Yeah, it's kind of scary to me. I was horrified. I'm just going to be honest. When I was waiting, questions in, we're getting the notes from our producers, and you see this guy can't follow the law. He's been there for 6 weeks. What in the world? Dawn Malarczyk, as a defense attorney, looking at this from the defense perspective, is that encouraging? Does that mean jury nullification or something like that's going on with this guy?
My reaction was the same as yours, Julie. I was just horrified. Like, what do you mean he can't follow the law? We just did 3 hours of the judge explaining the law to you. We just did 10 hours of closing argument. So it's absolutely maddening as a defense attorney. And I'm sure as a prosecutor or a U.S. attorney, you're trying to make decisions, literally life and death decisions about who's going to stay on this jury, whether you move for a mistrial, whether you agree to excuse this juror, whether you ask the judge to ask further questions based on really no evidence at all. this one note. And so what you do as a defense attorney, you go back to your hotel, you go back to your office, and you just talk to your team, and you scrutinize every word, every letter of the sentence, every punctuation mark to try to figure out what are they saying. And then you talk to your team and say, what do we know about this juror? Who does he talk to? You know, the evidence, or I'm sorry, the commentary earlier that this juror sits next to the foreperson is fascinating to me. You know, they sat together for 8 weeks, like you said. That is absolutely fascinating. Now, how that cuts, I don't know. But I will say this. Overall, for a defense attorney, disruption is not bad. Animosity, arguing, not following the law, disagreement within a jury during deliberations is not a bad thing. All things being equal, a hung jury is better than 12 unanimous guilty verdicts. So again, all things being equal, I am very reluctant to excuse this juror and impanel someone brand new. Those are the odds that you're playing for as a defense attorney.
Excellent points, Don. So, Dr. Carroll, the next question had to do, and I'm going to read it, it says, if a recipient wants, requests, or asks for controlled substances and an individual hands over controlled substances to the requester, has the individual who hands over the controlled substances distributed? What did you think when you heard that one, Dr. Carroll?
I think it's pretty clear that they did. Whether someone asks you for it, and I'm presumably if they're going to pay for it or even not, you're still distributing it. I just want to go back to that errant juror for a minute. You know, he said that he's gay. Perhaps he really is. Perhaps it's an issue of not being able to 100%, you know, understand all of the things sexually. I mean, you know, to understand it in a way to be able to decide on some of these questions, because he feels that he's gay and he doesn't understand, you know, he can't put himself in the place of these victims or something. That might be a part of it as well.
Okay. Don Malersic, let me go to you on the drug question. When they're asking about whether the person handing it over is distributing, what did you think when you heard that?
You know, Julie, I mean, like, what is going on here? I mean, the only thing that is probably more maddening and frustrating than hearing the questions from jurors is I'm sure the jurors hearing the answer from the judge. Because what this jury is saying is, here's what we think. Did we get it right? Judge, you tell us whether we got it right or not. And this judge, as every good judge does, just says, look, go back and read my instructions. No judge is ever going to tell the jury, we think you got it right, or no, you got it wrong. The instructions are there, and these instructions have been, you know, debated and discussed and reviewed for decades in multiple courts throughout our entire country. So the judge isn't just going to say, well, your summary of the facts is right. They're going to say, go back and read the law.
Excellent points. Don Malersic, Dr. Carol Lieberman, thank you both so much. We'll see what happens. We'll let you know when they're back in that jury room and if we get any more wild questions. All right, still to come. Defendant Raul Valle takes a stand in his own defense in the Preppy Party Murder Trial. Will his words tip the scale?
Did there come a point when Mr. Snyder took a case of beer from one of the two?
Yes.
And what happened after that?
It moved out into the driveway, and then a fight started.
This week.
A high school party turns deadly. Now a former student is facing a jury. We're breaking down each day's proceedings in the Preppy Party Murder Trial.
Opening statements with Julie Grant. Mornings at 8, 7 Central on Court TV.
Friday night, the WNBA is on Ion. The dream aimed to be a nightmare for the Fever.
Shannon finishes.
Then the sun tried to outshine the storm. Oh, like that! Coverage begins Friday, July 11th at 7. Find Ion wherever you watch. Ion, it's on.
Welcome back. Defendant Raul Valle returns to the stand this morning in the Preppy Party Murder Trial. This young man is accused of stabbing 4 people and killing one of them during a high school party brawl. Jimmy McGrath died, 17-year-old star lacrosse player. Now, Raul Valle has turned down 2 plea offers, we understand. We don't know what the terms of them were, but we just know he's turned down 2 deals, and on Monday he took the stand in his own defense. He's about to continue in just a short time. We'll go in together live as soon as he's up there. So he testified that he goes to this second party on the night in question to try to, quote, help cool tensions with some teens involved in an earlier fight.
Could you see people hitting the car?
Yes.
What did that feel like inside the car?
It's weird to describe. I've never been in a situation like that. They were just punching and kicking and hitting the car from everywhere.
On all sides of the vehicle?
Yes.
Could you tell if things were being thrown at the car?
At the time, all I heard was the banging and stuff.
All right, so was this a good idea for him to testify? Will he tip the scales in his own case? Let's bring in our legal eagles. Still with me, attorneys Don Malarsic and Kevin Brackett. Kevin, let me start with you, please. What do you think about this young man testifying in his own defense?
Always a risky move, Julie. I mean, it's really a gut-wrenching moment for the defense to put their client on the stand, and of course, all we've heard so far is the direct, and we're still in the middle of that. The real stuff will be shown on cross and how he stands up to that. But so many statements in this case, so many different things that he can be crossed on. So it's really it's going to be a very interesting process from here on out, and seeing how he responds on cross.
Yeah, that's such a great point, Kevin. He should be good on direct. If he's not, I always look to the lawyer who maybe didn't prep him well enough. Yeah, cross will be a true test. That should happen today. Dawn, your thoughts on him testifying. What did you think of that move? A smart one?
Well, it's tough. I've had probably 120, 130 felony trials, and out of those 120, 130 trials, I've probably put my client on less than 10 times. And the reason you put your client on is to advance your defense, self-defense, duress, alibi, something like that. Putting your client on just to say, I didn't do it is usually a disaster. And you have to evaluate, has my client made a former statement? Has that statement gotten out to the jury? Is he going to be cross-examined on multiple inconsistent statements? You only get really one opportunity to tell your story, and this is it. We haven't really gotten to the incident itself and his description of that, his motivation, what he was feeling, why he was acting. That's going to be the important part of the direct today. And then obviously the cross-examination is going to make or break this decision. As prepared as you are as a defense attorney, it's really tough to predict what the cross-examination of the prosecutor is going to be, but you got to evaluate that. And it's a tough call. So far, I don't think it's paid the dividends that are worth the risk. But again, we haven't really gotten to the meat of the case and why he's on the stand.
Right. Great points, Don. I want to show you both our Court TV poll. We took this yesterday, and here's what our wonderful courties at home said about Mr. Valle's believability. So he was found to be 51% not believable, 22% a little believable, 14% mostly, 13% of respondents said very believable. And I was hearing some of my colleagues saying they noted how he was giving those short answers that they would have liked to have heard more of an explanation from him, the yeses, the nos, just really, really short and succinct, when on direct is that time to take and explain yourself and set the scene and tell your story. Kevin, what did you think? Did you find him to be a believable young man?
Well, of course, Julie, he's comes across as a scared young man, but that's to be expected because he's a scared young man, and he has every right to be scared, whether he's guilty or innocent. I mean, he's in a precarious position right there. So I thought, I had issues a little bit with some of his testimony, and I was concerned he wasn't really engaging, wasn't elaborating on his answers. He doesn't appear to be invested in his answers. It's more performative, like he has rehearsed rehearsed this a lot, it seems like. So there's some coaching involved, which always undermines your credibility. It's less sincere, less genuine. So I think that's going to hurt him. And as Don was saying earlier, you know, of course, it's always a challenge to put your client on the stand. You know, as Mike Tyson said, everybody has a plan until they get punched in the face. So that punching in the face is going to come on cross-examination. So if he's not doing that well at this point, when he's still on direct, yeah, it's not going to get any better from here on out.
Isn't that the truth? Boy, I love how you put that. Kevin Brackett, Don Milarczyk, our legal dream team on opening statements this morning. We appreciate you both so much. Thank you for the great insight. Kevin, I know we need to let you get to court. Don, fortunately, we've got you for a little more time this morning. You're coming with us to Court TV Live. My friends at home, go get some more coffee when we come back.